Okay, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice lunch. My name is Tom Barrett. I'm the ombudsman at CalSTRS, and Ed has asked me to help facilitate the meeting today. With me is Peter Haley, the Director of Member Account Services. We've got a long agenda, and so we hope to get through it. And a couple things before we go. I'd like to welcome the remote attendees. We have about 30 folks from throughout the state who are listening in. And because of that, when we ask a question, we ask that you wait for the microphone to come in, identify yourself, and ask your question, and we'll get an answer for you. Little housekeeping: the restrooms are behind us or right over here, and we will have a break at about 2 o'clock or so. The packets, I hope you all have your packet that has the agenda in it. For those of you on the remote sites, the packet information is available online. And if you have a question from the remote site, the way to get your question to us is by sending an email to advisorycommittee@calstrs.com. So if you have a question, let us know where you're from, and send the email to advisorycommittee@calstrs.com. So like I said, when you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. And the agenda and packet review is we're going to have a discussion on the CalSTRS, CalPERS right of election. Then we have credible compensation regulations. Kimberly Petz is going to give us a demonstration of the employer dashboard. Robin Madsen, return of excess contributions. We have a GASB update. Then we have our break. We have a pension solution update, legislation and regulatory update, and then open forum. And then we'll draft an agenda for next time. And in the packet we have a employer directive. We've got the presentations from folks who are presenting. There is a circular, and we have the new publication, Join CalSTRS and Join CalPERS. So with that, Peter, did you have anything at all? Okay. With that, we're going to have the CalPERS, CalSTRS discussion. Heather Herf from CalPERS and Rosanna Castaigne and Cassandra Malik-Beck from CalSTRS.
Good afternoon. I'm Cassie Malbeck, and I'm here from CalSTRS. And like Tom said, we have Heather and Rosanna. So we scheduled this because we understand that this is something you guys have been wanting. You've been wanting it for a while. So we are here, and we will attempt to answer whatever questions we can. We'd like to keep it kind of what the law, kind of what's relevant today. We know that these laws have kind of changed over the years. So if it's something about 1999 or 2005, we'd probably have to handle that offline and look at the specific circumstance and kind of what the law said at that time frame. So ask away. What are your questions?
We did have a few this morning because we had a panel. So
Okay.
I think some things may have been answered, but you've got us jointly together. So
Yes, and I know there was a question that was asked online, and it was having to do with an adjunct faculty and being concerned if they ever qualified for a permissive election form because I believe the way that it was phrased was they were below the 67% threshold. So it would depend on the specific person and if they were if they were coming from STRS to PERS or PERS to STRS, and if they were currently a member of STRS. So if the person was a PERS member and did not have STRS membership, so they were PERS, working in a PERS covered position, and decided to take this adjunct faculty position on that did not require membership, then in that individual circumstance, they would not receive a retirement system election form. So that was a question we got.
But would they receive the permissive?
Somebody, for CalSTRS purposes, anybody that's performing creditable service can elect at any time to be a CalSTRS member. But the individual question, in that circumstance, they would not receive a retirement system election form because the position does not require membership. So again, it would kind of depend on what the scenario is, and that was a question that was sent to us ahead of time for this piece of EAC. You guys have to wait.
Teresa Cooper from Stanislaus COE. And I thought of a question that we asked last time that maybe we can get this started with. An employee came to a district permissively elected because they were a substitute in a district. So they permissively elected for that job. So now they're a STRS member.
Okay.
They then applied and was hired in another district, same county, let's just keep it in the same county, to do paraeducator work. They're vested at STRS because they've been a substitute for years, and they permissively elected originally. So they
Can I
have
just stop you there? So for CalSTRS, we don't have any vesting requirements in our
okay.
piece. That's a
So they're a
CalPERS
STRS
stuff.
member. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I just want to make sure
Got it
people don't
mixed
know
up.
we have a vesting.
So they're a STRS member because they permissively elected.
Okay.
They got hired as a paraeducator in District B. Now they want to do the right of election for that PERS position to stay STRS. Because it was permissively elected into membership in STRS, we have heard they don't have that right to elect. So do they or do they not?
So it's kind of like a two-phrase thing. So they permissively elected into CalSTRS, so sub work permissively elected, they're our member. Now they came into a position that's covered by PERS. So what we would need to look at, does the position require membership in CalPERS? So then we would look to CalPERS, does the position require membership? If the answer is yes, then yes, they can have the retirement system election form.
Okay, so
Right, so that's why we would look for PERS to tell us, does it require membership in their system?
okay.
Is that,
That's correct.
okay.
All right, so let's say that they were a part-time paraeducator, so they don't mandatorily qualify up front, but they've worked their 1,000 hours. Now they mandatorily qualify for that position. Would they then have that right to elect from there forward?
I would say no, because the law says 60 days from the date of hire for that position.
But that's the caveat that CalPERS has said, yes, because of the time qualification. It's at the
I know we've said, no, I know we've said that in the past.
So this is, let me just clarify so that we're all, so this is the same. You have someone who up to this point has only been a STRS member through a permissive election. And now they've taken on a part-time position that doesn't qualify necessarily for membership right then with CalPERS. And then they reach the 1,000 hours and now they qualify. So
I know in the past, we have said you can have it at that time that you qualify. I think that's something that both agencies need to revisit, because, at least we'll revisit, because the law says it's 60 days from the date of hire in the position that requires membership. So it's not a new position. It's the same position, it just didn't qualify for membership at the time.
At the date of hire, but what was added, and I believe it's on the decision tree, was that it's 60 days from the point of hire or qualification.
I know it is on the decision tree. I'm not arguing that it's not on the decision tree, and I know that that is definitely how we have interpreted it, but I think that's something that we need to revisit, because I don't know that the law says that. And so speaking of the decision tree, I think that's something we also want to check in with you guys on, is that a valuable tool? Is it not a valuable tool?
Yes. Doesn't,
What is valuable about it? What is not valuable about it? Because if it's a valuable tool, there seems to still be a ton of confusion about this per stir. So what
Case
we
in
want to
point.
do is make sure, what we want to make sure is it is a useful tool to where there isn't this confusion. So we're hearing that it is a valuable tool, but there's still
but isn't it?
still a lot of questions.
Isn't it based on when the individual is eligible for membership, which could be, is the service creditable service, one, and two, do they qualify for membership? So eligibility of membership may not necessarily be the date of hire. It could be at a later date, and as long as they meet the two conditions, then the option to elect is available.
That is currently on the matrix. I know that is on the matrix, and like I said, I know that is an interpretation.
And
I know we've administered it that
I
way.
think on the CalPERS side, just to, I think, clear up what our role is in this determination, is that we would be able to say yes or no, does this, position qualify for membership? And we would be able to say at what point it did, right? But we can't necessarily say to CalSTRS that they should allow for the election for that, because this person is electing CalSTRS. Much the same as when it comes to the vice versa situation. If someone's electing a CalSTRS covered position to be covered under CalPERS, if there's a reason in our law that we can't allow it, let's say the break-in service issue that we've all talked about, CalSTRS may not have an issue with that in their law, in the way they see it, but we do. And since the member's electing CalPERS, we're going to be the ones that can say yay or nay on
Right.
it. And so I think that's the piece in this that comes into play. It's a CalPERS position that at some point will qualify if they work a certain amount of hours. And we could say, yes, absolutely, they're a member. They started in 92, but they're now a member as of 99 because they reached this 1,000 hours. But whether or not the retirement system election can be approved to elect CalSTRS, it sounds like CalSTRS is saying it's not.
I think we just need to look to the law, and the law says if the election is made, let's see, the election shall be made in writing on the form prescribed by the system within 60 days from the date of hire in the position requiring membership. So that's something we need.
Eligibility and requiring are basically the same
But it's 60 days from the date of hire. There isn't a new position. I was hired to do this job, and maybe I'm starting off doing it a day a month. That's the position, right? That's when it's 60 days from when I got hired to do that position. Now, maybe that job changed, and maybe now I'm doing it 3 days a week instead of 1 day a week. Is that really a new position? Does that mean that you now get that right of election? I think that's something we need to revisit, because I don't think the law allows for that.
Well, what you're saying, though, is it didn't require membership at that time.
It didn't require membership at the time of hire.
And with these laws, it gets very specific to the words. Much like for us, the break-in service that can be such a headache and such a pain in our side. It's the simple wording of is employed that leads us to say, like, they have to be employed and they can't have a break-in service. And that's the same in a sense with this. It's saying it has to be made within 60 days of hire. And that hire is just the one word that gets it where it can't be allowed in this situation. That's where, I guess, that's where we come from when we're trying to stick really to the law and what it says and what we're allowed to do.
Okay, Ramona from Stanislaus COE. So with that being said, your substitute teacher then could never elect upon the completion of their 100 days.
So it depends. So what is the scenario? Are you a STRS person going to a PERS person?
Going
Are you
into
a
a PERS,
STRS
'cause
member?
You're a PERS member, you're now a substitute teacher.
So you're PERS, you do not have membership with CalSTRS at this point?
Correct.
Okay.
What has been said was they can elect after their 100, once they mandatorily qualify for STRS, they could at that point elect PERS for their future.
Now we're going the opposite way.
We're going the opposite way, but now that's 100 days is definitely more than 60.
Right.
Right. And
So the position says it has to require membership.
Right.
So if they're CalPERS, they don't have any membership in CalSTRS at this point. So they're CalPERS, let's say working CalPERS 10 years. Then they decide they want to do some substitute work. So we have to look to see, does the position require membership? It does not require membership. So it has to require membership, and you have to be able to make the election within 6 days of the date of hire of the position requiring membership. So in that particular instance, right, they could not elect that position. We would say no. The CalPERS would check with us. Can we, would we accept this, not accept this? We would say no, because the position doesn't require membership, that they shouldn't get the retirement system election form in that instance.
Okay, and then to clarify earlier, if I permissively elected STRS and then I take a PERS qualifying position, I can elect to have that PERS position covered under STRS.
As long as PERS says the position requires membership, yes.
All right.
To go back to your question with the 60 days from hire and all that, on the PERS side of it, that specific language hasn't been looked at the same, like to that, like they must have recently looked into that and kind of gotten some clarification. I don't know that we have. So it's something that we would have to take back, because if I understand the question right, you've got somebody who is a classified, they take on a substitute teaching position, and at one point they finally qualify. I'm not sure what our answer would necessarily be at that point. Right, and
I do know that,
so
yes.
I don't know if we would stick with that or if that's something that needs to be looked into closer, because it sounds like we have the same language. I was just looking at our law because I was just looking at the ed code.
I think we were looking at the government code this morning as well, and I believe it is very similar language to say 60 days from the date of hire.
So
But I mean, it's like,
it's a good point for us to take back and definitely get some clarification on both sides.
I guess my turn. This subject
you have to say your
about
name
the
and where
election.
you're from. You have to say your name and where you're from.
Vina from Orange County. This right of election subject, I'm not kidding. It's over 20 years. And I can have it in writing with the past information. We have changed the positions and the views so many times that it kind of looks like a joke. And to me, in 20 years, we could not simplify it. I don't know why. Why can't we just do one-time election when they meet right of election and they are locked into it? Why is that? Why we cannot change the law or have legislation to make a change in 20 years, the same subject we've been working on? We have multiple people with all different kind of scenarios that they qualified or had right of election. I mean, it's kind of looks bad when we can't even tell when the district calls that we don't know. We have to check. Then you have to check. Then you have to check with them, you know? And then at the end, nobody really knows.
So just to kind of answer to that, so this particular section has changed several times over the law. So with the change to the law, there's going to be new interpretations based on the way that the law is written. So this is not a section that hasn't been touched where it's the same thing since 1996. It's been changed several times. So there's been different interpretations based on the time frame of what the law says. And to propose something like that, I mean, I think anybody could propose a law change like that. If employers want to get together and do something like that, I think that's something that anybody
At the end of the day,
do.
the burden falls on you guys.
It does, you're right.
So isn't it you guys should be proposing it?
Well, we did propose some legislation
But it
change
never
to this
went
law.
through.
It went in Department of Finance,
Right.
kicked it out. And the reason they kicked it out is because they were concerned about the employer. And so that is our conundrum. We can try, but it may come across better from the employer angle, because they're looking at it. They're not, obviously, they aren't here. They don't know all the concerns. They don't know that you guys are in full support of this request that CalPERS is making. And so it gets kicked out, and we are kind of, okay, we have to stick with what's in the law. So if the employer were to propose something, would we support it? Depending on what it is, I wouldn't say we wouldn't. I mean, we would be in support to get clarification as long as, we can all agree,
Yeah, I mean, it's something that the
we
agency
can
could look at to see.
We can propose saying what PERS and STRS law should be. Can we? That
Anybody
you
can
both
write
should
proposals.
have the same law. First, to begin with, both of you, PERS and STRS, should have the same definition. They meet qualifying time. They have right of election once, and they are locked into it.
Well, I think employers all kind of have lobbyists that get to say what they like or don't like about legislation, right? Anybody can kind of say what they like or don't like about legislation. It's getting to that right person that represents you as the employer or the individual as the member. I mean, we could write something and, CTA or somebody else can come back and say, we don't like it, so employers do have voices through their advocates to say, if let's say PERS writes something that you guys can administer, or we write something, you guys have voices to kind of use through that avenue. I don't know that there's an opposition to do something like that, but it's not currently proposed from either system.
All I know today, it became even more complicated with taking out that 60 days from higher date.
So let me
because
ask.
we've been making them member once they meet.
And I don't think we're unwinding anything at this point. What we're saying is this is how we're viewing the law. But so it kind of takes me back to the matrix on how the matrix is helpful. I get that the matrix says to do that, so that is something that we would have to, adjust. But with just that side alone, let's say we adjust that or something, explain to me how the matrix is helpful, or what documentation would be helpful, so that we're not in this boat where there is so much confusion. Because we do have this document out there, and it sounds like you guys like the document. You don't want us to get rid of the document, but I'm still not seeing how it's providing clarification when we still have so many questions.
It needs clean up.
So, but if I were to change that piece, would that answer all of your questions?
I don't know all, but quite a few. I mean, these kind of things, because we are always confused about the permissive election.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps changing. One time we know they are locked into only that district,
Mm-hmm.
but then by position they can go to another district, can again elect, have right of election.
Right.
It's very hard for districts to follow up what's going on. They can barely manage their business in their own house, and they can't see what's going on in other districts, or some people don't understand enough. So all I'm saying is, it's kind of very
and that's
frustrating.
why we're doing this, because we want to provide clarification. That's why I'm kind of checking in to see, is the matrix doing the job that we want it to do? I mean, is it providing clarification? Is it the right kind of tool? Is it providing more confusion? That's kind of what we wanted to consider as well while we're up here talking about this subject, because we want a document that's going to be useful and helpful to you guys. So we want to make sure that is the document, or maybe there's another avenue we can take, or another document or something else that will be helpful for this
It
for
will
this
help
situation.
if we can erase everything and start fresh. Thank you.
I think she had her hand up.
And I think this is really more an issue of equity, and that CalPERS would be looking at this, because certificated employees don't fit into CalPERS rules for the fact of what is considered full-time. A certificated employee can be a 30-hour-a-week full-time employee, which is below the minimum for CalPERS purposes. And so you have an inequity there, where you may have a true classified employee who has to work 40 hours a week to get full service, and then you have a certificated employee who's only working 30 hours a week and they're getting the same full service. So there's an inequity there, and they just don't fit into the rules for CalPERS. I would think that CalPERS would look at this and say, maybe we shouldn't even allow this election. It shouldn't happen, and get rid of it.
I think Deepa, can we?
I'll take
Deepa's-
that comment back. I'm sure that myself and my staff would be down for that at any moment, at any certain given day. Just get rid of it, but.
So
Ramona,
I just want to confirm, because we have had so much variation in which way, when do they have it, when do they not, and we have a lot of employees that have been given the right of election, and when they go to retire, what is the documentation that you are going to require? We filed the election, but we don't get anything back from you guys that says it's approved or not approved. So we have the election signed by the county office and it's sent over. But how do we guarantee or protect the rights of that employee who, after all these years, is going to go retire, and then all of a sudden you guys are going to say, well, because of this and because of that, because we've had so many changes over the last, like Vina said, 20 years. How do we protect the employees in this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, okay, on the CalPERS side, it is the responsibility of the employer to submit that election to us within 60 days.
Right.
Okay. If we do not receive the election, there's nothing we can do. If we receive the election, then we do send approval letters out or denial letters out.
We have never received one. Never.
It goes to the district, okay.
Yeah, I am the district. Never received one. And I've
Okay,
been at this district
if you
for
could
18
give me
years.
some cases, because I would be very interested in following up on that. Because if there's a breakdown in our letters coming out to you, I want to fix that immediately.
Yeah.
We do. We send a CC'd copy of the letter to the member, to the employer, to STRS. And if they're not supposed to be in there, we will send an adjustment. It's called a MEM 155 that tells you to take them out of CalPERS and report them to the appropriate retirement system or CalSTRS, whichever it is.
I've seen an approval letter, but they've just started coming within the last year. I have.
Sure. Come on up. I'm going to invite Terry Cox up. She works in that unit for me, and she processes the majority. And I think you all have pretty much met her.
Okay, hi, everybody. Our unit processes these elections. When we receive the election, which, by the way, should be uploaded onto the appointment, what? Anyway, we receive the election, we check for eligibility, make sure that the election is completely filled out. If it's approved, we record the election in our system. We make a letter, approval letter that goes to the member. That same letter is CC'd to the district that they made the election at. And if it's a denial, it's the same thing. We make a denial letter. We send a letter to the member. That same letter goes CC'd to the district. And if needed, we send out a MEM 155 that instructs you to please reverse whatever you've reported to us. In most of the cases that are denials, we send a copy to STRS also, so that they know. So we make 3 copies. This is not always the case, but since I've been working on it for the last 5 years, I would say, 4 years, that's the way we do it. The only thing that I'm thinking might happen is I send it to our mailroom with your ID on it. And if we have the wrong address, maybe, I don't know. But that is our process.
Thank you, Mary. So to follow up on that, I will be checking with our mailroom on that process to ensure that that's understood. It sounds like there's a mix, though. Some come out to and are received and some do not. So I'll be following up on that because that's a major concern of mine.
And just to speak to the CalSTRS side, I don't believe CalSTRS has a similar process, but I'm looking to our assistant director over here. So that's something that she's hearing and maybe we can consider, but we don't have a process where we respond back with a letter at this point.
So to continue the answer to your question, those forms do go out, approval and denial. It sounds like we have an issue that I'm going to follow up on. The times that we've had that you're referring to where you're at retirement and now it's being brought up that this member never should have been allowed to be reported to us, that the election shouldn't have been allowed, those are usually the cases where we have not received an election. I have several cases right now that we never received the election. They're going to retirement, and what happens at retirement a lot of times is they'll go through like a compensation review. And that's where the compensation comes into question. And that's at that point where a lot of times we're contacted and it's, does this person's certificated time, should it be allowed to be reported to us? If I don't have an election, our answer is no. It should be reported to STRS or to wherever else. We will look at those cases to determine if there was maybe election that the district or the county office has kept in-house. There's been in-house forms that have been created in the past where people have handwritten that they're electing CalPERS on what's more of a permissive election than an actual CalPERS, CalSTRS election. Those documents are not CalPERS elections. So we can't honor that as a CalPERS election, and we never received it. So those are the instances where we're getting into the problem of having to retroactively adjust members for 10 years who are at this stage of retirement. Nobody wants that. Has it happened in the past? Yes. We have to take those cases one by one and look at them. They can go either way. Some, I have one case that we had where we were able to allow the backdated election because the member did qualify at the time. The only breakdown in this was that we didn't receive it. So we can say, okay, we'll let the election go backdated because we can do whatever we can within our means to allow for someone not to have this kind of an adjustment. But there's been very similar cases, and one little thing is off, a break in service, the qualification for membership, and we can't allow it. And we have to make those adjustments by law. Members have options at that point. They have appeal rights and everything else that, they can follow up on. So we understand like the history, and we understand that there's been some wavering decisions. We look at all of that and we try to hold true to maybe what was allowed. If somebody was given an approval and they were allowed, then we can't necessarily go back. That's a case where that would be very difficult for us to go back and say, no, it shouldn't have been. Are there times when we have to? Yes, but all that's looked at case by case.
Okay, I had a few questions. One, the member has 60 days to sign it and give it back to the employee or employer, so the employer couldn't get it to you within 60 days.
If it comes in within 75, on our end, we're happy. I mean,
Okay.
We just want to get the election. A lot of the times, these problems, if we get an election that's 90 days late, we'll still look at it. If the member signed it within 60 days, no problem.
And then,
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at too, is like when was it signed? Was it signed, let's say it's signed day one and the district sat on it for 30, 40 days. We're looking at when the person signed the election, when it was processed kind of
and then
thing.
the approval letter, is that going to the county office or is it going to the district
district.
itself? It's going to the district.
If that needs to be looked at, okay. Is there a reason why we picked the district over the county office, Terry?
Yeah, the reason is, there are some districts that report directly to CalPERS, and if I send it to the county office, the district never gets anything.
BCC to the county office as well?
Yeah.
I would say the vast majority, though, aren't they through the county office? And would that serve
Would the
the
county
majority?
office be a better place to
Yes.
send the letter? Okay, I agree.
Okay, everybody, let's
that
wait.
back.
Let's hold on a second, wait for the microphone so the remote folks can follow the conversation. Thanks.
Do I need to repeat that? Did everybody hear? Okay, what I asked, the reason we send it to the district is because some of the districts have expressed that they report directly to CalPERS, and and if I send it to the county office, then the district doesn't know whether it's approved or not. So I'm asking you, is the county office a better place to send it? And the answer is yes. Okay.
Okay. Both sides have been heard. Not always, and yes. So we will take that back, and we will we will keep that in mind when we're considering what our options are. Because maybe it's that we CC both the county office and the district,
We can
and
do
it's
that
as simple
too.
as that. It also could be as simple as we've got some issues with our mail room, our addresses. That's something that will be looked into. She still had.
Going back to the sample that we were talking
I'm sorry,
about.
can you state your name and
My
where
name
you're
is
from?
Judith Cifuentes from LAUSD.
Okay.
Going back to the sample that we were talking about previously, when the employee comes to retirement and the case is reviewed, and then it could be a case that there has to be adjustments because there's no form that you received. You mentioned that you request that contributions are backed out if it is denied. Is there a way to link contributions that should not be received in the system to avoid that and wait until after 10 or 15 years and avoid the issue to the member?
So for CalPERS, and I don't have my payroll and membership area here to answer some of that, because that's where that would lie. But we put a lot of education out, and we rely on the education given to the employers to ensure that they are reporting correctly. We have edits that do come in during and at the end that ensure that we're paying benefits out correctly. That's our responsibility. What edits are happening at the front end, my membership and payroll area would have to answer to that. But the answers that I've really heard, especially recently, have been that that's where our education comes in and why we strive to give you reference guides, circular letters, and make sure that the employers are aware of what needs to be reported and appropriately give out elections and appropriately report people.
Okay, so if that is the case, and the district has the form, copy of the form that was submitted to you, but you don't have the form, and then you're questioning, then will you take the copy that the district kept?
So like I think I said earlier, what we will do in these instances is we will look at any forms that can be provided. If the election is appropriate and the member qualified for it, even though it is a backdated election, we will consider that and consider allowing it.
Yeah, from CalSTRS' point of view, we would just have to look at the actual scenario and see what happened and kind of what CalPERS is saying. Look at what rules and laws were in effect at that time frame and take those kinds of things into consideration.
Sherry Hansen, Sacramento COE. So I want to go back to what you kept asking about the matrix.
Yeah, perfect,
Okay.
yes.
The matrix is extremely helpful.
Okay.
The problem is, the last time we got a matrix, you guys have probably been up here 3 or 4 times since then. So right now the matrix is not helpful because the last matrix we got had nothing about break-in service for CalPERS on it. You know, and now you're saying it's 60 days from the date of hire, not the date they qualify, and all those little changes make a difference. So yeah, we loved the matrix when it had it, and when we had it and it was relevant and we could follow it and it worked. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't work anymore because, I mean, I have to agree with Vina. I've been coming here for this meeting for almost 18 years now, and we go through this every other year. It's the rules are changing, and it gets, you have to understand our level of frustration.
No, and I think we do. I think I understand that the document, you know, may need to be updated. But what we would also say is we really from a CalSTRS point of view, what we're trying to get the employers to get more comfortable with is going to the law, because that's really what governs all of these things, is that there's a law there that lets us do something or not do something. And that's really what we're trying to put out there is, instead of looking at a form or a document, we really want to point employers to the piece of the law that allows for it. And I know that, I can see the faces that people don't like that, but that is really our tool. And that's what internal staff is using at this point. We're using the law. So if you ever have questions and you're not sure, call us. And just to throw that out there, about a month ago, there was some transition in MAS, and questions like these come to my team. And so there is an inbox that we have. It's the Mass Training and TRL at CalSTRS.com. You can email us there. We have a hotline. You can call me or email me directly. We would almost, from CalSTRS' point of view, prefer you to call us if you're not sure, so we can walk you through the piece of the law, instead of relying on a matrix that may or may not have been updated. Right. So I don't want it to sound like we're not trying to be helpful. We are, and we're offering our services, and if you're not sure, call us. Please feel free to call me directly.
I understand
and I know
why
you don't want to always have
I
to call.
understand that you guys are leaning more on, we want you to interpret the law, we want you to interpret the law. And some of us maybe at the larger districts maybe have the staff to take the time to read the law and try to do that. But at the smaller districts, that's not going to happen, because they don't have the time to sit there and interpret the CalSTRS law and interpret the CalPERS law and interpret the IRS law and interpret the labor code and all of that. I mean, some places you got 2 or 3 people and they're trying to do the job of 20.
And I understand that.
So that's why we lean on you guys to interpret the law for us and tell us. You tell us what you want us to do, and I'm pretty sure we're more than happy to do it.
Okay. Just really quickly, if you guys would be okay with it, I want to talk about a couple of things that CalPERS is doing. Sure, go ahead. I got my notes, so I won't forget.
Just to tag on to that whole interpretation of the law thing, one of the biggest issues we have is that you can get, and as we spoke in another segment about, we can get a legal opinion. We can pay for whatever legal opinion we want. We can get an attorney to interpret the law a certain way, depending on which attorney we hire or whatever, and we can interpret the law, and really believe with all of our hearts that that is the correct answer, and the district can do the same. But when the rubber meets the road, it's when it gets to the compensation review unit, and they have a standard. And they have an interpretation, and that is the law at that time. That's what everybody goes by. So my suggestion really on this matrix would be, it would be so helpful. Oh my gosh, we don't want to lose the matrix. But maybe we could establish some kind of ad hoc committee that would include representatives from CalPERS, CalSTRS, the compensation review units, and county offices and districts that report. It doesn't have to be a huge committee, but just maybe an ad hoc committee to look at the matrix and look at what would be really valuable for all of us, and maybe come to some conclusions on interpretation if we include the compensation review unit and get buy-in from them. Because like I said, at the end of the day, it's the compensation review units that are making those final determinations.
Well, so I want to correct that, at least from the CalSTRS side.
Okay.
It's not the compensation review unit
Or
that's
the
making
audit,
final
or-
determinations. From a CalSTRS point of view, we are all on the same page, consistently applying the rules and laws
Yeah.
with credible compensation, with credible service. My team actually handles that. So if audits has a question, audits is contacting my team. So I don't want you to think that I will give you an answer and then 10 years down the road, compensation review unit will change that answer. We are, within CalSTRS, we are all consistently working together to provide you guys with consistent interpretations of the law.
And so that would be great.
Yeah. So we are internally doing that.
So if we could get those firm interpretations and the ones that you stand by, if we could get those included on the matrix, and
so for us, we can't, it's kind of like what you guys have asked for the credible compensation regulations. I know you guys wanted a credible comp guide, but we can't do that because we can't put out something that would be conceived as an underground regulation. So that's why we developed regulations. So maybe this is an area that we need to look at. Is this an area where we develop regulations or not regulations? That's why I kind of wanted to get a feel for, is the matrix helpful? What's helpful about it? is it the appropriate document? What is the appropriate document out there? Because like you guys have said, this is a confusing topic.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we
Yeah.
can, Heather and I have been communicating with each other. I can't tell you how many times. So we will,
And I think the appropriate
we'll
document.
meet up and see what we can do to help to
Yeah.
provide more
Everybody,
clarification.
In answer to your question, on what would be an appropriate document, what would be appropriate is just something, and I think that all that we want is just something that we could rely on, something we could,
I understand, yeah. No,
you
I
know,
understand.
guidelines we can rely on.
Okay, we're gonna have, we have one person over here who's been waiting for a question. We'll have two more questions, and then we'll let Heather finish up with what she wanted to do, and we should be going to the next agenda at about 1:20.
Hi, I'm Natalie from Yosemite Community College District. Where is this law found?
The law that speaks to CalPERS, CalSTRS?
Everything, yeah. Where
So-
can I go?
So for CalSTRS, it's Education Code 22508.
Yeah, and ours is in the Pearl, it's Government Code 20309. And on the election itself, does it not reference the codes somewhere
I
on
want
there?
to say it
Yeah,
does.
Ed Code
Yes.
22508.
Yeah, the election form also has the education code and the government code on there.
So just to clarify, as of today, now,
As of this minute.
and maybe this is what we want as a regulation instead of that matrix guide or something, because what I'm hearing now, the past is the past. We're going to take care of all the ES 372s. We're going to look into the approval letters, whatever. But as of today, in order to have the right to elect, one, the person has to be hired and mandatorily qualify for the other system to make the election, basically. And they have to make the election. Because this whole thing about somebody who is a CalSTRS person, they've been a teacher all along, and they're also doing some classified work, let's say janitorial work on a part-time basis, substituting.
Sure.
And so they haven't been a member of CalPERS because they're just doing substitute work, but they've been teaching, and they have been a member of CalSTRS. Now they've subbed for 1,000 hours in a fiscal year, and they are now qualifying for a membership in CalPERS. But today we heard that they would not have a right of election because when they started doing the substitute work of the janitorial work, they did not have mandatory qualifications for CalPERS. So even though...
So that's our interpretation to keep it to CalSTRS. I'm not sure if that's their interpretation at this point. That's what they're saying is they're going to go back and
But
You
this
guys
is
wouldn't
theirs.
allow it.
we wouldn't allow it because the position doesn't require membership at the moment that they took the position.
At the time they started
Yes,
working.
sorry. Yes.
So I think we've kind of narrowed this whole thing down by that 60-day election thing.
Well, and it also starts with, so you first have to be, like for us, you first have to be a member. So
Right.
that impacts it as well. And then
Exactly.
you look at, is there a qualifying event? Did you take a position that requires membership in another retirement system from our piece of it? So then that's when we look to CalPERS, does it require membership or not? And
Right.
then it's similar process with, I mean, they have different qualifications, right, than we have. So they have their vesting piece and their break and service piece, which is not a piece that CalSTRS has. So it just, that's why what I'm saying is if you're not sure, I would prefer you, if it's for a CalSTRS piece, call me, email us, and we'll walk through it with you to see whether they qualify for a retirement system election form or not, because there is our piece of the law, and then there's the government code as well.
So you can contact me, you can contact our employer call center, and they can send us a message and we can respond. Okay, I'll take that back as well. You're free to contact me, you're free to contact my staff. I think a lot of you have Terry's information. I also had a note here to get our own mailbox because Terry is partially retired. and she's going to retire fully at some point. So I would like to institute a mailbox for the CalPERS CalSTRS election on our end so that you can send questions to that. Our contact information, my name is Heather Herf, and my phone number is 916-795-7623. My email is Heather_HURFF, as in Frank, at calpers.ca.gov. I am going on maternity leave, but I will have an out of office with contacts that you can contact. And again, you can always contact Terry as well until we get that mailbox started.
And we don't mean to hassle you.
No, we don't take it that way.
Our staff are getting hassled.
No, and we totally understand, trust me, because it can be confusing, so we totally understand. That's why we just want to be here to help. So if you at all are not sure, probably the best thing is call myself, email the box, call Teresa, and we will get it figured out. And like I said, we're pretty good about CalSTRS and CalPERS communicating with each other on situations if we're not sure, if there's something that comes up and we need assistance with each other. We've built a really good rapport with each other, and so, you know, we're trying to provide more consistency and get you guys the assistance you need.
And this is not a question, sometimes it can involve social security adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And you make that change, and we can never take credit away from social security.
I know that Social Security has been an issue when these adjustments come up. And, you know, the concern goes both ways when it comes to Social Security. We recently had somebody, again, who had not been given an election. They did qualify, and they were actually leaving CalSTRS and coming to us, and there were Social Security implications. And I wanted to make sure that that person was aware of the costs that they might incur doing this. And so, believe me, the Social Security, that was Francis, right? The Social Security thing is a concern. Can we answer all those questions? We can't.
Because we
But
can't
it's definitely
reverse
something
it.
to keep in mind, and
Yeah.
why it's so important at the time of the election, if there's any doubt, that you call us. Because nobody wants the employee in this situation. And we'll do everything we can to avoid it within the law. Any past adjustments, if we can avoid it within the law somehow, we will. We don't want to have to do that, but.
Okay, I think it's safe to say that we're going to continue to work on this issue, and we have to continue the agenda going. Did you have a little bit
I
more?
have a few just notes to make,
Okay,
just
and then we'll go
updates,
to
and then we
federal
can move on. I just wanted everybody to know that at CalPERS, we did just recently look at the employee reference guide or employer reference guide and the CalPERS CalSTRS section, and we made some adjustments. There's a flow chart in there that we did add some clarifying language to. There's nothing as extensive as the decision tree, but we did try to make some clarifying, adjustments in the reference guide. So I think that will be a few months, and it should come out as a new one. And so maybe going online and looking at that could be helpful. If you've printed it out, that section maybe reprint it, soon. Also, we are currently working, we've submitted a design change to my CalPERS that would hopefully, if approved, add some clarifying questions. When you go in to submit an appointment and they're making a CalPERS CalSTRS election, you have to upload the document, as Terry said, and you have to answer a few questions. And we're attempting to add some questions to that page that would identify whether this person is a substitute, whether this person is a part-time employee. That would give us a heads up so that when we get the document and we're looking at the election, right now we don't always know that it's a substitute that wouldn't qualify. We have to go on the fact that they were given this, that's already been reviewed by the employer and approved, and this person should have that election. So if we have a trigger, which is what we're asking for, that would give us kind of insight to call maybe and say, hey, this is a substitute. Are they working enough time to qualify? Have you checked with CalSTRS to make sure they qualify for membership before administering this election to them? And so forth. So just a couple of things that we're trying to do on our end that could hopefully help us catch them sooner if they're being reported wrong, and give some more information out for the employers administering the election to them. So, yeah.
Okay, with that new twist, we do an automatic appointment upload. Our system creates appointments automatically for upload to CalPERS. Now, with this change that you now have to answer questions,
That's been that way since 2011.
okay, so because our appointments are not kicking out, they won't kick out going forward. Because we're not answering those questions because they're not part of the upload file.
When you're adding the appointment online,
but our system, we create a file that automatically creates an appointment at CalPERS that we upload to CalPERS, and it creates the appointments.
so how is your election getting uploaded?
If we have an election, then staff at the county office comes in after the appointment is set up and adds the information about the election.
And that's where the questions will be.
Okay, so then our appointments won't kick out because those questions are not being answered immediately. Or
If they're
at
going
the time
in
the
and
appointment is set up.
we're adding it to that same area where they say, is this a CalPERS or CalSTRS covered position, and they're electing CalPERS, and you hit the radio button, yes, and then it says upload the document, that's where those questions are gonna be. And that request has just been recently made, so on that, don't start looking for it. We'll give you a heads up that that's coming once we've gone through that process.
Our districts do our appointments for the members, but they're required to submit the ES 372 to the county along with job descriptions. That way we can verify that yes or no, they truly qualify for their right of election. So we're mailing those in after we've approved them. They're not being uploaded at the time the appointment's being created. Is that an issue?
If they're mailed in, that's fine. The only reason we'd want you to upload them is because once you upload them, it opens a page for us to record the election, and it also creates a workflow that immediately goes to our area. When you send it in by paper, it goes to the mailroom, they have to scan it, it goes to another area where they have to identify it and then send it to us. So it takes longer for us to get it. But I can upload it. If you send it in paper, and that's the only way you can do it, when I get it through the mailroom and all of that, then I can go ahead and answer those questions on our side and upload it. But ideally, if you can upload it, that's the best way to do it.
But if the district is the one that's appointing them and the county has to approve it, the appointment's already done, and then the form's with the county.
appointment's there. Do you have access to answer the question and upload from your side?
It's already been answered. And then they've selected that it's being
You
mailed
can
in.
still, if
Change
it's
it
already
from
been
mail to
answered,
upload?
so they've uploaded at the district level?
No, they've selected that it's going to be mailed.
Okay, what you can do is go in, and if you go into that appointment, you can say replace document or upload. It should allow you to upload it. It won't let you? Okay, then send in by mail.
Okay.
Okay.
If we receive it by mail, we will edit the appointment and upload it. That's how we end up processing those that come in by mail. We can. We prefer that it get uploaded by the employer. Okay. Is that where you get a unique error message? Okay.
And it sounds like not only does the replacement not work.
You have to wait.
From our end, from the county end, but it doesn't work from the PERS end as well. We had a situation where the wrong document was uploaded and we didn't.
Yes.
Right.
And
Joel Garrett.
that's been reported. That has been reported as an issue.
Just for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Just for that person.
So is that, so that's something that may be resolved in? Right, for that person, but for, if this were to happen again, is that something that is still gonna continue to be an issue? Is that error gonna continue to pop up?
That's the first time that we've seen that error in that situation, so
Okay.
it could be related specifically to that participant account, and that's what's being looked at. If it's broader than that, then we'll work on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have we, I think right now we have to stop on the CalPERS, CalSTRS election issue. I'm sure that if you have specific questions for Cassie or Heather or Teresa, they'll be responding to you. So thanks very much for the input. The next issue is one that's not nearly as difficult, credible compensation.